All right, welcome everybody. We're excited to get going today. We're going to be talking about outsourcing your sales development team, the why and the what and the how. And to do that, we brought on co-founder and managing partner, a company called Durham Lane out of the United Kingdom. We've got Richard Lane. Richard, thanks for joining. How are you?
Yeah, very well, Gabe. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to get into this topic. I think it's an interesting one with a lot of people contemplating, is this something they should do? They don't have the expertise to outsource something. They don't know some of the things to think about it. So we want to tackle some of those, but let's start big picture for a minute. Why do you think outsourcing should be an option, or why is it something that you got into? I just kind of want to hear your big picture ideas on outsourcing in general.
Yeah, sure. Well, at the Durham Lane as a business, we call ourselves a sales acceleration business, and there are three core services to the organization: outsource sales, consulting, training, and coaching, and recruitment. And so we believe that no matter where a company is in their life cycle, we can help them in some shape or form as long as they have ambition. And part of what we love about outsourcing is actually being able to roll up our sleeves and get down and do the work. So we can train people to work in new ways, but then we can build teams, but then we can do that front end sales activity for them. And one of our mantras, mantra number four, is professional persistence, and that's one of the elements we bring to that outsourcing world, is creating that sales acceleration machine, really.
I love it. I love it. Why do you probably get people talking to you a lot. Why do people, in the first place, even consider outsourcing as a potential option?
Yeah, I think there are really, I guess, three key reasons, Gabe. Firstly, maybe there's a lack of skills or resource, or even a lack of understanding around that whole front end sales process and how to build out the cadences and create new opportunities. So I think that's one key area, and you particularly find organizations that have typically grown through referrals and recommendations just don't have that expertise in-house to be able to do it effectively and quickly. Secondly, is that some organizations have just got other focuses. They're maybe a high-tech company, they've got really core technical skills in-house, but they outsource the front-end sales piece so that their expensive sales resource that they do have are out busy on the road in front of qualified customers.
Got it.
And the third one is really around accelerating growth. So we've got a blueprint, we know it works, but actually we want to outsource the development because they can go faster. We can go into different countries, whether that be landing in the UK and expanding into Europe, or whether it's expanding out into Europe for organizations. Language, process, structure, all of those things you can get from an outsourcing organization.
Interesting. Is there one that typically kind of leads the others, or those all sound like it makes total sense? Is there one that's kind of typically, people just don't have the resources, or is it more the country thing? What do you feel like is kind of the leading cause?
Yeah,
a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so all of it, but we have really, I suppose, two things at the moment. One is that we're finding we're expanding into other European countries quickly because organizations are looking to expand their footprint. And there's this whole Brexit thing that people have talked about, but we're not sure, still not sure where that's going, but there's opportunity to expand. And secondly, we work with some really interesting technical businesses, and they just don't want to get into that whole front end SDR management piece. And it's complex and takes up a lot of time and effort. And if you don't have those internal skills at the top level to manage it, then I think that can be pretty tricky for an organization.
Love it, man. Okay. So as companies think about this, I think you've hit on a lot of the why reasons. I wanted to get into a little bit of the what. What makes somebody, and it may dovetail right into kind of some of the things you talked about. Why do I go outsource versus in-source? Does it overlay exactly with kind of what you were talking about before, or do you feel like there's certain things that really drive somebody to kind of keep it in-house versus keep it outsourced?
Yeah, I think some organizations, we do a lot of work in software and tech, but
Yeah.
and some of those organizations have got a really robust SDR process, and they're very
Yeah.
happy with that, and you know that's great. We do work with that type of organization, and we can layer on top, or that comes to that second reason, which is that resources are focused in different areas. So we tend to work alongside them, and we have quite a different working relationship with organizations that have got very defined structure and process, and we will follow that and
Yeah.
help to create success in that way. Um, the other piece is around really helping organizations to explore new markets and think in different ways. And you know, it's what we do. It's what we do for our living. So we should be bringing lots of insight and best practice into their world with a skill they don't necessarily have at this time.
I love it. What are some of the gotchas as you start down a path with people? I mean, it's hard to bring on salespeople even into your own organization. Then you try to bring on kind of an organization, an outsourced organization. They've got to learn a little bit of your culture and your talk track and your best practices, et cetera. What are some of the gotchas as you work with people that you'd recommend to make this process as smooth as possible working with an outsourced vendor?
Yeah, so I always say to our customers, imagine you had the best inside sales SDR team sitting next to you. How would you work with them? And that's exactly what should happen with us. So I think one of the gotchas is certainly that you write the contract. I've sorted that outsourcing bit. We do some onboarding and readiness, and then we don't have enough communication. So we really make it a big ticket item for us at Durham Lane to make sure that we're in regular contact and connection with our customer, because actually everything's changing on a daily basis. So if we set up and onboard, go through our quality assurance process, and then never update that, well, in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, we're out of date. So it's about that flow and loop of communication. So if you as the customer have just won a great new client, you would ordinarily tell your team about it so they could tell future customers. And sometimes that link gets disconnected. I think also, similarly to that point, with some of our longer term customers, we've certainly in the past been guilty of getting into status quo mode. So not the rock band, but into the position of it's up and running, we know what we're doing, we just do it. And actually things are changing all of the time. So we need to really make sure that we're adapting and changing and continually improving our structure and process and the way we deliver for our customers as if we were them. So we focus on three things at Durham Lane in our outsourcing business for our customers. One is input. So we need the fuel that gives us the input, the activity. Output, so what are the qualified opportunities we're creating and what is the cadence against KPI, etc. Okay. And third and finally is insight. And I really strongly, passionately believe that just because you're outsourcing, you should still expect insight.
Yeah.
Every call, there is some value from every call that you make, and we all know this from having been in those roles before. But every call you make, even if it's a no, you find out something. So really, from our point of view, it's how do we feed that back in so we get that continued improvement cycle going.
Yeah, no, I love that. Do you, I mean, a lot of people are starting to go this model. I like some of those best practices, how you optimally work with people. If you, there's always quote unquote, horror stories on implementing big software. I think there's an article I read, implementing big software and, companies that have completely failed in that avenue. As you think about outsourcing, is there certain things that are the typical, man, this is why outsourcing has, potentially failed in the past. It's because of that communication element. It's because of that, insights piece, or is there one kind of big gotcha where you'd kind of warn companies, above anything else, you'd by far watch out for this. This is kind of a make or break piece.
Yeah, great question, Gabe. I was asked that killer question by a customer. He was just about to sign with us. He said, Richard, before I sign, why does it go wrong when it goes wrong? Which I think is what you're asking.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
And I think the real key is communication.
Yeah.
And that's not just, as I mentioned before, that's not just the onboarding and the initial education and quality process that we take customers through, but it's ongoing. So I do think one of the big benefits of outsourcing is that, particularly if you're a fairly small software tech company, for example, hardest job in the world is being one sales guy on the phone with a room full of techies with headphones on. But actually, as we get bigger, the added value piece gets stronger because you've got rooms full of individuals all working in the same way, in the same direction, with the same motivation and momentum, but on behalf of different clients. So that's a big one. I think the challenge is that you get it set up, you get off to a great start, and people move into that zone of they get busy with other stuff. So it's that communication piece, and we work really hard to have regular input and review so that we can check that progress is as it should be, but also what's coming down the line, what's changing, and what can we do differently. So it needs to be a never-ending stream of communication. I would suggest is what leads to the most successful agreements.
I love it. That makes tons of sense. So, if you had to, we've hit a bunch of stuff, Richard, but again, this is a new idea for a lot of people. Just thinking about, hey, I don't have to build this myself. I could kind of outsource it to somebody. Summary statements, kind of as people think about starting this journey on outsourcing. Again, maybe a summarize or kind of last words of advice for those that are just starting.
Yeah, be really clear on what success looks like. Be really, and also be realistic, I think, but work with the partner, get to know the partner, go and see where they operate, meet their people, and work together to build out what that program needs to look like. And we tend to work on, we work in two ways. We sort of do bundles of days. So we do a lot of proof of concepts, and then that will naturally lead into more of a retained contract. And I don't think anyone's going to jump straight. Well, I personally wouldn't jump straight into a retained agreement. I would want to try it out first and test it. But also the other thing is give it enough time, because one of the other things that we often find is people expect immediate results, and immediate results don't tend to happen. However, with the right work, time and attention and attention to detail, then we can create really strong pipelines of revenue and strong partnerships and relationships.
I love it. All right. Last question, because you just kind of hit on it. As people explore this, what are the types of pricing models that are pretty industry standard? You mentioned just kind of a couple type things, but do you basically buy a rep and pay their salary? Do you, is it just kind of a flat fee? Do you pay on activity or result? What's kind of the models that are out there that people should explore?
Yeah, there are a number of different ones, Gabe. So you can go from the model of you only pay on results, and that's not something we currently do. We don't do that. We call ourselves a resourcing business. So actually, the amount of time and effort that goes into onboarding, and then the teamwork that goes into creating the solutions, it doesn't feel like the right model for us. So we work on a resource time materials type basis. We are moving into the managed service space. So actually you hire two full-time FTEs from us. But we also, we are able to support organizations that just need maybe 2, 3, 4 days a week. So we always put small teams together. We never have just one individual doing that. We always say lots of eyes, lots of ears, lots of ideas. So we put small teams together to try and create more. But it ranges from that very small IT firm looking for a couple of days of front end sales qualification work, through to organizations who have multiple full-time heads working across European territories. So it ranges from pay as you go through to the other end, which is you're paying for salary plus margin and desk space.
So yeah, it's kind of depending on where you are, there are a couple different options. That makes tons of sense. All right, well, Richard, we'll come to an end here. If someone wants to learn a little bit more about Durham Lane and kind of what you guys do, maybe get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, best way is website is durhamlane.com, all one word, .com. My email is richard.lane@durhamlane.com, and there's also info@durhamlane.com. So hit the website, you should be able to find us and get in touch. But we'd love to hear from you, and really appreciate you having me on for this session, Gabe. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, again, I think it's a really important conversation as people try to figure out what works best for them, how can they do it. kind of the gotchas that you need to watch out for. So again, Rich, I really appreciate it. And for everybody else, enjoy the rest of the day.